Welcome to In Presence We Trust, a podcast about the art and heart of holding group transformational spaces. I'm David Cates. Today, it's my turn to step in and interview the usual host of this podcast, Rachel Rickards, the founder of the Field Facilitator Training. This podcast is designed to empower facilitators, leaders, and individuals from all walks of life to harness the transformative power of presence in their work and personal life. We hope these conversations inspire you and give you clues and tips for how to bring more presence into your life and your work. Rachel is a global leader in personal transformation, intimacy, and embodiment. She's known for her exceptional skills in group facilitation and event production. Co-founder of Embodied Intimacy, she's created a renowned platform for trainings and events around the world, focusing on intimacy, trauma, somatic education, and the joys of nervous system regulation and connection. Rachel's been leading the Belly2Belly Facilitator Training since 2019, when I passed the torch along to her as the creator of Belly2Belly. She continues to innovate in embodied and relational practices, fostering transformative relationships for all who come near her. In this conversation you're about to hear, you'll learn about Rachel's journey from being an event producer to becoming a facilitator and teacher. She's going to be on the hot seat when I ask her questions about her earlier life with polyamory, self-love, reality TV, and the role of vulnerability in creating a safe space for others. We also discuss the complexity of group dynamics and the challenges of creating coherence and cohesion within a group. If you're ready to begin, join me in taking a deep breath. I'm really curious how you made the jump from being the behind the scenes event producer, which the way that you do that just boggles my mind. I think of myself as someone who can hold a lot of pieces at one time, but you hold orders of magnitude more things in your mind about all the events that you produce. And so I know that you're extraordinary about that behind the scenes thing. And I also suspect that in the beginning you enjoyed the like not being on stage, but being behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. And
Yeah.
at some point now here you are not only out in front, you're the lead, the facilitator, you're not just speaking, you're leading groups. And
Mm,
you're not just leading groups, you're now teaching other people how to lead groups too. And
mm,
so this is like an extraordinary journey from behind the scenes to front stage to leading and teaching groups and facilitators. And I'm curious how that journey has happened for you, both externally, like what made you decide to begin doing it this way? And what did you have to go through internally to make the jump to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand up and take my space on stage.
yeah. Oi, it's a great question. And there's several like moments I think along my journey along the way that have built up to that. Right before I met you, I was in my polyamorous phase of awakening or life, and And polyamory for me was, I mean, it was so much more than that. It was more about freedom, freedom of expression, let's say, and freedom of expression and ownership of my sexuality, and not being afraid of it or afraid to be seen in its expression that was unlike what I was seeing in the world, what was normalized, what the cultural ideals were. And so part of that, and part of the way that that expressed through me, was being a kind of, which is say, like when I have my flag that I was waving, was I'm going to love the way I love, and I don't care what you think. And in fact, like, I want you to know that you can love the way you want to love too. And so that was so important to me. It was so sacred to me as well. And at that time, when I was in this outward expression, it was the first moment where I got asked to potentially to be a part of a reality show. And there would have been nothing that would have been more terrifying for me than to be on a reality show about love and relating, and to be kind of exposed in that way, both emotionally but also like just physically exposed. And it was like, up until that point in my life, I had really struggled with some of my self-image, like even being overly critical of the way that I looked, and seeing pictures or videos of myself and like cringing a little bit. And a part of it at that time was like, I want to learn to love myself. Like, I want to see myself on camera or on TV or in a picture, and I want to just love that woman that I see and not be critical of her. So it was a little bit of like almost like a mission for myself. It was less about being seen by others and more about me seeing myself and loving who I saw reflected back. And so that was kind of the first step of me breaking out of that behind the scenes shell. And a lot of that was an invitation, was invited to me. I would have never done that on my own, but what made it possible was that I was in love, and I was loved, and I was held in a community, and we were doing it together. Um, and then I had my David Cates initiation. And at that time, I was producing the events of some of the Kula members, and people that I was working with. And I'll never forget, there was a day where someone was facilitating Belly to Belly, and I had produced the event, and then someone else was facilitating Belly to Belly. And I was watching it going, I can do this so much better. Like, this isn't quite it, and I know what that is. I'm connected to that inside of me. And it was like this moment of realizing that I would be doing a disservice to the world if I didn't step through what I needed to step through to gift that to the participants who were showing up to this space. It was like I was opening this space and inviting people in and telling them what they would experience. But then when they were experiencing it, I wasn't fully satisfied with what they were getting. It was like, oh, this is okay, but there's a different quality and standard that I actually want to penetrate people with, or invite them, or gift them, or open the space into. And so it was like, it was that knowing, and almost like, I don't know what to call it, quality control of how important this practice was for me, like what it gave me, and wanting, so the importance that the whole world, like there's like, in my heart, it's like, there, it is so important that the whole world experiences what's possible through this practice and through opening up this space. And so it was just, I don't know how it happened. It was just this moment. It was like lightning struck me and was like, step into this now or die, essentially. It was like, stop playing small. It's like, it's so uninteresting and unimportant anymore that you're scared of what people think or what they're going to say, when you have something, a voice inside of you that needs to be shared with the world. And so it was that. It was like, I think what I had to step through in myself was some kind of self-belief that what I had to say was important enough. And I'm so grateful. I think a lot of it, I think I would have never had something on my own. Do you know what I mean? Like, like there
Mhm.
has been such an initiation that you've invited me into. And then as I see how important you are, and how, and as I witness people's response to you and the way that you change lives, and I see that, I see myself in you. It's like, oh, that's me. Oh, I
Mhm.
have that. And there's like a recognition that then just, yeah, I don't know, it propelled me. Um, yeah, I think like those were the main steps. And I think what's kept me going, because that in and of itself wouldn't have been enough, because it's like the continual stepping in, and what has continued to light my fire in that is just the response that I get from people. Like if it wasn't for people's appreciation or their impact shares or their words back, like if it wasn't for me feeling my words land and come back to me, I would have stopped doing this a long time ago. My inner critic is too strong and too gnarly to continue, but it has been just the appreciation and hearing that like it makes a difference, and that like coming back has really um continued to be my motivator, and my why is the hearts and the voices and the people that are touched.
Hmm. Can you give a few examples of what people have said to you that penetrated deep enough into your heart for you to go, "Wow, I need to keep going. I'm going to keep going."
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, I think it's also, what's really interesting is it's like, yeah, I'm just kind of basking in the mirror of it, because it's like one of the greatest gifts is when the same thing that happened for me with you happens to someone else, when through being in a space that I'm guiding or a space that I'm holding, that someone else realizes that they're a leader too. Like that moment of that I give someone permission, or that they're able to take that next step. I can't remember so many of the exact words right now in this moment, but there have been so many people who go like, I want to learn from you, or I want you to mentor me or teach me. And there's, it's like that light that recognizes that light, that mirror that we are for one another. And
Mm.
it has been that particular quality of getting to be myself, and for someone else to be so inspired that it motivates them to make a change in their life where they step into their own self leadership. Like that process has floored me. It's one of the greatest gifts to
Hmm.
watch someone become their greatness. And for anything that I've, any space that I've held or open, or anything that I've done in myself to be that reflection for someone that they are great too, it's like breathtaking. So I
Hmm.
think that is my new flavor. I think at the beginning there might have been more other aspects of it, but there's been such a colorful journey that I've been on over the last years that I can't even find myself in those places anymore. But this place right now is when I watch people step into their power and recognize who they are and claim that for themselves, that is enough to keep me meeting my own edges of stepping into to the light, to be
Hmm.
seen, to say yes, and here I am.
Hmm. What are some of your favorite ways to create, to open a space in which someone can discover and step into their own power? Like, what do you do that allows someone to take that step and see themselves, feel themselves as a powerful leader?
You know, something that's really really simple is, in almost every space that I hold, there's this. like forum, there's this someone stepping into the center and speaking. And for so many people, when they have this experience, whether it's an opening circle or a closing circle or some kind of share, and they step into the center of the circle and are invited in a way, like through my role modeling, to be them, to authentically, like, to stop fucking performing, to let go of the mask and who they think they need to be, and to step into the center and just show themselves, to open their heart, to speak from their heart, to be vulnerable and to be seen in that. Like that moment of people just being seen and then recognizing that there's a group of people there that see them and that feel them. And it's like there is like this very powerful fractal sacred geometry thing that happens when it's like when I'm stepping into the center and I see me through your eyes. But it's not just one pair of eyes, it's 30 pairs of eyes or 80 pairs of eyes. And I see my complexity, and I see my light, and I become aware of my shadows. It's like in that moment there is a presence that unfolds the petals of a flower into this complex being. And it's like it's so profound, really, what I witness people see. But they're not looking, like you're not looking, but you're seeing through awareness. Like awareness opens to itself. And that practice, how simple it is. For some people, it's the first or only time they've ever stepped into the center of a space and allowed themselves to speak. One, and two, like sometimes they say the most vulnerable or revealing things that they've ever said in a context of relationality or social engagement at all. And it's like, yeah, I think that that's one of my favorite moments, is to see someone recognize their own beauty as they step into the center of a space and allow themselves to be seen.
Ooh, beautiful. I'm fascinated. Um, I'm fascinated by the differences between you and me in the ways that we facilitate, because
Mm,
what you just described is part of, it's like one of your superpowers is to model being that whole complex person and being
mm,
um, present and transparent with everyone in the circle about, this is who I am, and these are all the contradictions, and this is what I'm feeling and thinking. And you do create this amazing, it's not just a permission field, it's a permission field with role modeling that I think that I see when people step into your circles. You've already kind of like pre-lubricated the way, and so when they stand up, they're not they're not fretting about, oh, do I dare to show this part of myself, or can I relax enough to be seen in this way, or does it matter if somebody thinks I'm wrong or ugly or whatever, because you have already gone into the circle and shown, like, oh, here's all the possibility, or here's all these possibilities, and so they don't have to worry about that. And this
mm,
is such a beautiful particular way of leading through vulnerability, leading through honesty and self-revealing, that is a particular flavor of how you facilitate. You show up and you've got the skills and all that, and then there's also this personal, vulnerable reveal that creates the permission field. And I really love watching that. And in particular, it's warmed my heart that you've inspired so many women to
Mm,
step up and be themselves, dare to be themselves, and dare to be seen as themselves. And this is such a potent facilitator role that you bring. So I just wanted to reflect that back to you. And yeah, it's something that's not in my wheelhouse. Like that's not how I lead or guide or facilitate. And so I'm in awe of it when you create the responses in people to be bold and dare to be
mm,
themselves too.
thank you.
So I love that um, the particular, the simplicity that you were describing of when
Mm,
someone's in the middle and they're allowed to be themselves and they're reflected or mirrored or they're seen and felt by all the other eyes and ears and hearts in the circle in a particular way, and how when that drops into what I've heard you call sacred space, like, oh, now we're in church. Now it's like all of a sudden everything drops, and it's not just about, oh, you, this particular person, are being seen in all your humanness and flaws and how beautiful that is. But there's something more. It's like, oh, all your humanness and flaws are here, and then we're seeing through them to, like, awareness is witnessing awareness, and there's something deeper and simpler and more magical that happens then.
yeah. What I want to say, thank you so much for your appreciation. And what I think is really important to know is that that's still not easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think sometimes people think I get labeled sometimes like, oh, vulnerable leadership, and you're so good at that. And then there's a moment and people are like, okay, Rachel, now's the moment. Do the vulnerable thing. And there's an expectation that comes with that that role that I've created for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what I would just want people to know is still that it's hard, that it's still like being vulnerable, it still takes great risk. And there are moments where as a facilitator, it's such a catch 22 that the moment that I'm vulnerable, I create safety in the space. That other people feel safe enough to be vulnerable. But sometimes I don't feel safe in the space, based off of, for example, sometimes there's a particular group or a particular participant that I feel really unsafe with in myself as a being. And it's like there's such a call to holding and like loving both every single participant as much as I can be challenged or feel challenged in their reflection even, and like still wanting to open a space. And it's like part of that journey for me is that the journey of facilitation is how do I create safety for myself to keep holding the space that I want to invite people into. And so yeah, there's a whole cocktail of things that go into those moments. And there's some moments I feel really resistant to being vulnerable. And yet I know it's exactly the medicine that's going to take us to the next level. So it's this funny catch 22. What comes first, the vulnerable leader or the vulnerable, it's complex sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
every time I drop into that space and feel my heart and allow that to open, I we all go on that journey together. It is the antidote. It is the magic making potion, is me and my leadership being vulnerable. So it's both like my favorite thing and also like the dreaded thing, It's like, oh, it's like loving roller
Mm-hmm.
coaster rides. It's like that moment where you're going up, like, and your stomach starts doing all those things, and it's like, I know I'm gonna love it, but right now, feel like I want to turn around and go the other way.
So in those moments, I want to get into the nuts and bolts. Like, I'm not asking you to be vulnerable all the time, but in those moments when you know this is the medicine that's needed and you feel your stomach going into knots as the roller coaster goes up, how do you create the safety for yourself or the will to push through? And I'm curious about this in a way so that other facilitators can hear, like, what are some of the tricks that you do? What are some of the methods that get you to do the thing that you dread doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of times what happens is there's a seed, and it's not something that I can will. There's a similarity here with sometimes when I want to write something, or when a writing comes through me, there's a phrase. And there's a phrase that pops into my mind, and then it's like, okay, this phrase means I'm pregnant. And I can't stop hearing the phrase, and I don't even know the whole story or the whole speech, but I know that it starts with this phrase. And so the same thing happens when I'm guiding a space. It's like, and that's what I mean. Like, I can't be, my vulnerability is not performative, because I know that if that seed hasn't landed in me, that it's not, that I'd be forcing it. And so it's like, I'm waiting for this seed. And so this is like, I don't know what it is. It's almost like the seed comes and it lands. And then in that moment that phrase or that awareness opens in me, I know that it's just inevitable. So, but I've formed some kind of a relationship with that. And I think that at the beginning, that just took great risk. There was,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for whatever reason, my Aries or my, whatever other aspect of my astrology or my biology has created a being in me that likes great risk.
Mm-hmm.
And feels the call to action and the call to service from that. And so it's like that thing arrives, and then the seed drops, and it's like, okay, the seed is here. I know what I need to open into. And then it's kind of like a surrender in a way to that. I know that things that help with that are having allies in the space that are
Mm-hmm.
anchors for me, or people that particularly that either I feel safe with, or people who I know see me and reflect that back to me. Like, there have been people I've worked with at different times, which is like where collaboration comes in. That's really fun in these like beautiful facilitation love makings, which, for example, I have with you, and you'll just look at me and you're like, all right, Rachel, now you know what you need to do. And I'm like, damn it, you know it too. And now I can't hide it. So it's like that. It's like there's a mystical quality to it that isn't so easy to define or architect. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's an opening and a surrender and a seed that impregnates me. And then I know what the next step is from that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that description. I love that you're taking it where you're taking it into. I'm curious for our listeners. I can imagine someone going, "Oh, okay, I kind of get it," and I like the thing about it's helpful to have allies in the group in the circle, so I feel like I'm not alone with this process. And I'm
Yeah.
curious about when the seed drops. You've said that sometimes the seed comes as a phrase, and sometimes it's just like a knowing. And I'm wondering if you can bring a little bit more clarity to how someone might recognize when they're facilitating that a seed is dropping and like an intuitive knowing is landing and it's time to take the group in a new direction.
Yeah, it's like for me, there's also a way where it's a bridge, and there's a recognition of what I'm with, and for wherever the group is at. There's this is a hard dance, but there's like so much, like as soon as I start feeling separate from the group, that's an indicator that that bridge is needed, is ripe. Like there is something in that. And I remember a particular, I don't know why this example is coming. I was leading a retreat and I was at a really, it was in this moment where relationally my relational life had taken a big turn, and I felt like a failure. And the retreat I was leading was a relationship retreat. And there was just this moment, and it had probably been multiple moments of feeling like a failure and feeling like, who am I to be here holding this space when I've just failed the relational thing that I believed in and was living, and who would want to learn from me? And I felt so separate, and I was having such a hard time coming in and really being in the space. And I don't remember exactly what the phrase was, but it had something to do with like, right now I feel like the biggest failure of my life. And so there was just this moment of knowing that that was what needed to happen next. Was I needed to reveal that. I needed to open that space that I think is so humanly relatable. And yet, like, and that's what I recognize in myself is the more I feel separate from, or the more I'm in my own personal whatever, there's something collective on the other side of that. It's like through the personal we enter the collective. We can't just like go collective. And so the more personally revealed and engaged and in contact with the space I am, the more invited and safe everyone else can feel to also access those points in themselves. So there was a kind of magic that happened there where I was depedestalized. And yet at the same time, the group got to feel their own, failures and worthlessness in their own relational lives. And that got to be a meeting point that together propelled us to that next work we needed to do together as a group. And so it's like this. It's like in these moments when there's a separation, like, and I'm pregnant with something, and I, especially if I have the belief, it's like, this is how I know for myself. I have the belief, I'm separate from, or I'm like from that, and where like it, like I can feel the group soul longing to become one. And and I can facilitate that in moments, but I can also be that in moments, and the beingness facilitates itself.
How's that feel?
Yeah. Yeah, exciting. So-
I,
really beautiful. It's opening up all those moments. What I love so much about talking about this is that I find I'm at those access points in my body to those memories, and all of those moments are gorgeous. Like I don't have a body memory stored that anytime I've done that it's led somewhere bad or somewhere I didn't want to be. So it's like there are moments of oneness and connection and love and appreciation. It's like, it's gorgeous what happens through those moments. And so I'm happy to just be reminding myself.
Sweet, sweet. I, as you were sharing that last bit, it reminded me of when we're dealing with communication in a relationship, and just to say even a one-on-one, because there's a I love you're talking about separation, feeling separate from the group, and that there's something you need to say. And the intention is that if I share this thing I don't want to share, that we'll come back into connection. And in relationship, like if in couples counseling, for example, there's such a subtle difference between the intention of, I'm telling you this thing because you're wrong or I'm bad or something, versus I'm telling you this thing because it's between us right now and I want to feel closer to you. And I see when you
Yeah.
do this kind of sharing in groups, that there's a beautiful awareness of you're not just saying it and then collapsing into, oh my God, I'm such a failure at relationship or anything. It's like there's always one eye is on staying connected or reconnecting with the group. And I think this is a really crucial part of facilitation that I see you doing, and I don't always hear people talking about this. So, I kind of like to open that a little bit more. It's a dual vision. It's like what's going on inside me personally and what's going on inside the group as a field. And if you don't
Mm,
have both of those in mind simultaneously, you lose something. You either go into collapse
mm.
or you go into lecturing. I'm curious about how you keep in mind both the, what's happening inside yourself and what's happening inside the group. So, there's that beautiful binocular way of being aware of two things at once, which I think is the most crucial quality of a great facilitator, is to track all that at the same time. And I'm curious, what are your tips for doing that? How does it live in you to be aware of your own inner private personal experience and what's happening for the group, what's needed?
Yeah, great. There's something else I want to add to this because I think it's super important here because you were saying, what do you recognize inside of yourself that lets you know now's the time? And I also have within that, what do I recognize inside of myself that lets me know
Mm.
it's not the time? And this is something that I think is super important. And this is the make or break for me of vulnerable leadership. In that moment, my question to myself would be, am I fully holding myself in this right now? And where I've seen people get it wrong and what has imprinted this so deeply inside of me that I'll never ever unsee it again is when I've seen leaders step up and in their pain basically ask the group to hold them. The energetics behind the movement in and the reveal and the exposure is, this is too much. I can't hold this. You hold me in it. And that moment is when the space becomes unsafe for a participant, is when I have to now hold the facilitator. There have been moments where I have been held by the group, but it's consensual. In that, there is a space holder who is available, for example, to hold if I'm going through something and it wants to like circle into the group, and a space holder wants to hold me and the group. Like there is a way to facilitate it. But that's what I share with people when they're like, how do I know? Or it's just like, are you holding this? Are you able to hold, like, are you the adult holding the child? And if so, then it's really safe and welcomed because people will feel invited to be a part of the experience. But as soon as they feel that you're not holding yourself anymore, it's like game over. So I wanted to really share that because that's a big part of my process. And sometimes if I'm not ready to be vulnerable, in a group, actually, I'm still working on holding myself in this and it's not ready. I don't want to now ask other people to hold me. I want to get myself and I want to get this and I want to wrap my arms around this little one inside that has come up. And then I know I'm ready to open into the space. The other invitation that you gave me was, how do I have in a way like this dual awareness? I think it's so complex because on one level that dual awareness is something that I'm a relationship that I'm developing with myself. And the more I develop that relationship of dual awareness with myself, the greater my capacity grows to have that with a group of me and you and us and we. And there's a circumnavigation around the whole entity that is coming through. And so I think that is like my first relationship and my first priority is to my own growing awareness of me. And then I think the other aspect is I think there are just some innate qualities that come through each of us in the way we were raised and our biology. And you were sharing at the very beginning the complexity of what I'm able to hold and navigate. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense considering my upbringing. I was born in a huge family. I had 4 parents and 4 brothers and 4 sisters. And I like all of my families were his, hers, ours. They were um, complex family systems of cross pollination and these people and that. And like, there was so much complexity for me to hold relationally as a child that was a skill I had to develop. I had to be able to hold a lot of charge and intensity and multiple relationships at the same time, and being the oldest and then being the youngest. And it was a way that life made me. And so it's no surprise to me I ended up in this role that I'm in now, because it's almost like this was my childhood training ground. It was like, come on, girl. So yeah, so I think it's that. It's like, that's just the way that my sense is created, in the intensity of my environment. I've grown some 6 senses that are always in connection with my own experience and tracking the multiple threads of other experience, and the place where there's safety and the place where there's potential and possibility and expansion in the middle of all of that complexity and different threads and dimensions of reality that are like, one of the most intense moments of being a facilitator is actually when a group comes together for the first time. Like that moment when, let's say, 35 different realities coming from completely different galaxies all combust together to try to enter one reality together. Creating any kind of coherence and cohesion from that place is mastery, for where people are coming from today. So it's like that. I think it's the very necessary skill that you have to have as a facilitator now when dealing with coherence and attunement and group field work of like oneness and connection.
Thanks for sharing that about your childhood. It's like, oh my God, yes, we all are trained in different ways by life to be unique, and we have special gifts that we bring. So speaking of complexity, I love what you were sharing about your childhood and how you were trained with all to keep all these things in mind and heart and managed at the same time. And that's your particular gift for facilitating. And everybody brings their own from our own upbringing and nature, nurture, all that. I'm curious, like, as you turn your attention now towards these long form, like the field year-long training to help other facilitators deepen their own particular style of what they bring to groups. I'm curious, like, what what do you hope to achieve by training these facilitators? What are you trying to create in the world? Because this is taking an enormous amount of effort and energy from you and from everyone who comes. And I'm not they're all getting incredible value. They love what's happening. And I'm curious how it feeds you and what you hope to be, that these seeds are blossoming into the world.
Mm. Yay, beautiful question. Thank you. I think it mixes some of what I already started speaking to earlier and some other aspects, but like first is there is nothing more rewarding than watching someone step into their power and claim their space and find that connection to soul and purpose and meaning and love, and take a stand to gift that to the world. There's just nothing more rewarding than that I do that I have the possibility to open that space for individuals to find that call in themselves is a blessing. I mean, it's an absolute blessing. Watching that transformation happen it's so nourishing for me, and also like the ripples that I watch it have on the world as I watch those people step back out. I don't know how many people I know have quit their jobs. It should be a disclaimer. Beware, stepping into this space, you might quit your job and leave your partner and start a whole new life. Because I've seen it happen so many times where people just go, oh, right, that. And so it's setting people up to realign their lives. And I don't want to take the credit for it, because I think most people already know. It's not like I'm doing something special. They're coming because they already know. And I'm just the excuse why they take that risk to actually step into what they know they should already be doing. But that is worth it in and of itself. But the field and the call there is a particular kind of leadership and group beingness together that I'm wanting to impregnate seed in the world. And two, I feel called to take groups and myself to a new level that I don't even know is possible yet. And I die for a space to go there. And this is my into that, in a way. After facilitating enough time, I can only do 101 so many times where it's like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And these godlike, church-like moments, which are part of the fuel of me holding this space, which is the moments of oneness and unity and crying from the beauty of what humans can do together and the way that we love and what's possible, like that happens in the field. And there are certain ingredients that make that possible. And so this whole new chapter for me of leading these facilitator trainings is an attempt to continue to push the limits and the edges of what's possible and group fields and experimental spaces, and giving other people who feel the call to be leaders and facilitators an imprint of that, so that those ripples can continue to spread out into the world. So the field is like, hey, I believe in all of you as leaders and facilitators and beacons of light for this world. And I want to gift you the tools, the practices, the best kept secrets that I have, because I don't believe in a world of scarcity and lack where for any reason I would keep those best kept secrets to myself, because my mission in this is to gift people the best kept secrets that I have as a facilitator, the what I have learned and cultivated and know, because when other people's spaces get that gift that I uniquely have to give, and then they take that out into the world and they gift that to their spaces, we come into a place where we elevate. I believe that the better your spaces are, the better my spaces will be. And so there's this desire for camaraderie and support, where I've seen so much as group facilitators, we are these lone wolves, these solo entrepreneurs, and we believe we have to do it all alone. And we believe that we have this one unique thing that makes us the best facilitator, and we keep that as like a hidden gem, like this is my thing and I don't want anyone else to have this thing. I'm trying to shake up the facilitation movement and say, when we all support one another as facilitators and we all want to be the best they can be, we elevate everything together, rather than being in this scarcity mindset that what I have this practice and I don't want anyone else to take the thing or whatever, but like bringing it into this place of group support and mutuality, where our love and appreciation for humanity elevates all of our spaces at the same time. Thank you so much, David Cates, for holding space for this very special Flip interview. And thank you for listening to the second episode of In Presence We Trust. For episode 3, I'll be back in the interviewer seat as I'm joined by Rick Smith. Rick and I met 10 years ago in Bali, where we were part of the Bali Kula, a group of students studying and exploring facilitation under the guidance of David Cates. Rick is a best-selling author and incredibly inspiring teacher of teachers. I'm really excited to introduce you to his body of work on awakened leadership. Check out my website for more information on my latest courses. I'm actually going to be hosting Rick in the UK for an Awakened Leadership Retreat this August 2024. There's a link for more information in the show notes. Special thank you to all the beings who have contributed to the creation of this podcast: Michelle, Joby, Lavinia, Vaishnavi, and Soundfields, Thomas and John. And thank you again for joining me as we continue the journey and open up this new communal space and learning environment that is In Presence We Trust. You can subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to like and comment below. Until next time, deep breath.